Well, welcome out today. It's a new day, and man, we have got a really good video for you today. We did an interview with Pete and Savannah McGuyer. They were a couple that we helped a bit with our last ride, and we're going to help them again this ride. But I asked them if they wouldn't mind giving me an interview, or giving us an interview about how the adoption process goes. And I'm telling you, I was blown away. This is going to rock your socks. I don't know if you know somebody that's wanting to adopt, or you want to adopt, or whatever, but this is a really good video that would be good to listen to. And we got to do it in two parts because it went along pretty a good amount of time, but it was all good, and I think I can get it in two parts. So man, just grab a hold of this and watch it, and then next week when we do the rest of it, watch that one as well. I'm telling you, I had to repent. I had to change the way I think about adoption and why you do certain things. And this couple here, they've really got it together, and I just want to, I can't say enough about it. It's just, it's amazing. It blew my mind, and I think it's going to blow yours. So enjoy. Here's Pete and Savannah right now. And today we have with us Pete and Savannah McGuyer.
Pete McGuyer, lovely wife Savannah.
Hello.
Let's see, we've been married for 10 years and 4 months.
Oh,
what's up? I remember things. Yeah, we've already got 3 kids, 9
biological children.
Yeah, 9, 8, and 4. And yeah, we live in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Here, why do you want to adopt if you already got 3 kids?
Why do you want to adopt, Savannah?
Why do you want more children?
Why do you want to adopt? You know.
So yeah, ever since the age of like 6, 7, I've just always knew that I was going to adopt, and I would tell my family like, yeah, I'm gonna have kids, and they're gonna look different than me. Yeah,
that's every 6 or 7-year-old's dream. Very
super
normal.
common. Yeah. So it's always been on my heart from such a young age, and there wasn't like an experience or a certain moment that I can remember where it was like why I felt like I wanted to adopt. It's just always been there. So we were both told as children that we wouldn't be able to have biological children. Yeah. So I spent
multiple like health issues, right? And not, I guess, as children, but it's like, growing up, like including teenagers, like it was a legitimate concern whenever we got married that we would not be able to have kids. And so it was a part of the conversation whenever we were engaged and whenever we were looking at our future.
Yeah. Or, spending the majority of my life not thinking I could have children, and, just being very set on like, okay, adoption, like that's what I'm going to do. So we got married, and then 2 months later found out we were pregnant. Yay. Completely surprised and shocked, not expecting that at all. And then our second child came along 18 months later, and we're like, pretty sure things are working. Yeah. The doctors are wrong. So yeah, kind of put the dream of adoption on the back burner for 9 years, just focusing on our family and raising our children. And
yeah, and so we, I'm in the military. I'm active duty. I've been in for about 14 years, and so, for the first 6 or 7 years of our marriage, I was gone a lot, and so, I think that kind of added to why adoption kind of got put on the back burner for us, because life was very busy and lots of kind of dynamic stressors involved with that. But we had our third child after my last deployment, and as life started to slow down, I made the mature adult decision to get a vasectomy. So that decision was mostly made for me, but I think that it was a good one. And so it ended up being a, like that felt like the end of the road when it came to kids for us. And the longer, after that procedure was done, the more we continued to talk, and the more we were just like, we don't know if our family is quite done yet. And so we started to revisit the original conversation of, well, hey, like, what does it look like to adopt? What does that process look like? And is that something we're interested in? And the more we talked about it, the more we came to the conclusion of, yes, we definitely want to do this. And so that kind of, launched us down that process. And I guess that started, we started talking about it, I would say 2018. And then we actually started like doing something about it in 2020.
It was around August, September 2020 that we were like, all right, we felt like it was the time to start the process. So
yeah.
So what stage are you at in the process right now?
Yep. So we just sent off the last group of documents needed for our dossier. So real quick, dossier for any adoption is the mountain of paperwork that covers everything. So it has your criminal background checks, it has your home studies, it has your medical records, honestly, so much. I'm not going to be able to list everything, but that's the amount of paperwork that will be sent to the country that you're hoping to adopt from. And then they look through that and they're able to really get a good picture of who you are as a couple, who you are as a family, also as individual people. And then they're able to take that information and best match you with a child that would fit your family. So we just sent off the last portion needed for our dossier. So hopefully within the next couple months, they will go ahead and send it off to the country that we're hoping to adopt from. Once they receive that, then it could be anywhere from...
It could be a long time.
We were told anywhere from 0 to 18 months before it's like, who knows?
And with that too, right? Like, obviously, COVID is still a thing that is affecting, how countries are managing their infrastructure. And that's one of the challenges, is that they're expecting everything to take even longer than what they would normally have because of the COVID restrictions.
And there's a backlog of, families who sent over their dossiers who are waiting to be matched. Like, there are so many families ahead of where we're at that are in a standstill because they're just waiting for things to start opening back up. So when we started this process, I don't feel like it's lost on anyone that adoptions are very arduous and, very lengthy process. So when we went into this process, with a very realistic expectation, and then also knowing we're doing this very hard thing in the midst of a pandemic. So many things are going to be different. So many timelines are going to be off, and just knowing that going into it. So,
Wow, that it's got to affect you emotionally a lot, I would think.
We don't talk about emotions in this house. No, it does. It's hard. So a lot of it is I think expectation management, right? So, we had some things happen over the last year and a half that, so we moved, right? So we used to live in Fayetteville near you guys. And then I got promoted, and then we were able to move back here to Wilmington, North Carolina. And so there was a lot of just life going on as we were going through the process. And so, you try to set an expectation for, hey, we want to have this step completed by this time. And then life gets in the way of that, right? Or, some of the challenges with submitting paperwork is that, we would complete it as we thought we should. We'd send it off and they'd say, hey, actually there was an error here, and they would send it back. And so, a lot of those kinds of things were small administrative challenges along the way, on top of, having 3 kids, going through a move, and also, still living inside of, the last couple of years. Right. And so I think that has been challenging. I think that it, if anything, at least I'll speak for myself. I'll let Savannah speak for herself. For me, it almost makes you feel more committed to the process, like more committed to the child at the end of the process.
Right.
And
Right.
the analogies that we've kind of heard used and have used ourselves is the idea of like going through a pregnancy, right? That there's a lot of challenges and discomforts, many of which I don't have to experience, but you know, that ends up being like it's almost a way of bonding with a person that you don't know yet, you know? And I think honestly, especially for the male perspective, you know, like obviously like she actually grows children, you know, I watch as she grows children. And so for this, it feels very similar. I'm watching a process unfold. And you're just kind of, you know, fingers crossing it, hoping that things will continue to progress and move along and go well. But it just takes a whole lot of patience. And obviously patience is not the most fun thing in the world most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pete and Savannah, I would like to do a surprise question, and just a very short answer will be fine. But I was just wondering about your kids and how they're reacting, or just very briefly give a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, to the adoption, how they feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in the beginning, when we were first seriously talking about it, it was very important for us to talk to our kids about it and see how they felt about it. And because this is a family effort. And we really have such great kids. They were so supportive and so excited. Our middle child is a girl. She has two brothers. And so she was like, I can get a sister. Like she was, and I'm like, well, hold up. Like, we don't know if it's going to be a brother or sister yet. Like, let's, you know, but,
and then she starts naming the child. Like, yeah. So I think that's the challenge, right? Is you're trying to explain a process that takes years. So it's kind of like telling a kid like, hey, one day you're going to get out of middle school, and they're like in elementary school. And it's like, okay, like, sure. Like one day I'll be older. Like one day you'll be able to drive a car. Okay, well, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Well, you know, I think it's one expectation management with it.
Yeah, but you know, we've had discussions about race and culture and disabilities. You know, how would you feel if you had a brother or sister that had trouble speaking, or that, you know, was in a wheelchair? You know, just different things. And their hearts are just so big and so open. And again, our middle child, she is the protector and defender of the family. Like she will protect, like even her older siblings, she will like go up and like in front of him if like someone is, you know, giving him a hard, like she's just such a little warrior. So so yeah, they're very open and very excited for this, and yeah.
It is like you have to put in the effort in order to make this thing happen. You know, not gonna lie, there's not a whole lot of effort put into creating a child, right? But there is a lot of effort whenever it comes to actually making sure that you can receive a child through, you know, legal federal guidelines, right? And I think that's it's something where you don't feel like you're along for the ride. It feels like something where you are actively, you know, driving the car, right? And I think there is something very, very special about that, right? Where that level of intention, I think it causes you to do more introspection than my natural children cause me to do, you know, and to ask myself like, oh man, like I'm choosing to do this. What are all the consequences of this action, right? What are all the other aspects of my life that are going to have to shift and to move in order to make room for this action? And we believe, you know, that it's all worthwhile, obviously, or we wouldn't do it. But it's a very different kind of headspace to be in whenever it comes to looking at adoption versus looking at just having another child.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a gift, you know, as parents to receive a child into our hearts and our home. But just something I would like to say is that it is not lost on us that though this is a gift, it does not come without a profound cost. The fact that there is a child in an orphanage means that there was a loss of a parent or parents. There was neglect, there was abuse, abandonment. So the gift comes with a cost, and to be mindful of that I think sometimes adoption is painted as this very like beautiful and flowery thing, which in aspects of it are beautiful and are such a gift. But I think the real part of it that people aren't aware of or are comfortable talking about is that you have to be prepared for what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There are children that are going to have unseen traumas that you might not know how to navigate, or that you're not prepared to navigate. You know, a lot of people say, well, we're adopting a baby. Like, they should be fine. They're going to have limited amount of neglect and trauma and, you know, whatever. And it's like, no, not necessarily.
No.
A really good story I just heard from an adoptive parent. They adopted their daughter when she was 3 months old, 3 to 6 months old. And so around the age of 2 to 3, you know, she has been in a loving and a safe environment with her adoptive parents. But they would notice that her cheeks would she looked like a chipmunk constantly. She just always had these like really big cheeks. And it took them a while to figure out that every time she would eat, she would store food in her cheeks. And it's because as an infant, memories are formed. She was neglected. She went without food. She was starved. Mm-hmm. And so even though she doesn't have memories of this, the body remembers. So even if you're adopting a young child, you know, whose brain isn't fully formed yet to have memories of this, that does not mean that their body doesn't remember. And that at some point in their life, that will come out in a certain behavior, or in a certain way. So I think it's important for families who are wanting to pursue adoption or who are interested in this to fully
count
the cost. Yeah. To be willing to do research on this, to be open to learning about how to parent a child who've gone through, you know, situations like this.
And there's a lot of great educational products out there. And I know for our adoption agency, they specifically have like an education kind of program that you follow, and it addresses a lot of this stuff. One of the fascinating things that we learned, I read a book called How Children Succeed by Paul Tough. And in that, they talk about the neurological development of children. Essentially, you get the majority of your emotional development by the time that you're between 2 and 3, which realistically means that, if you were in a state of neglect up until that point, that neurologically you're at a deficit and that you have a lot to overcome because your foundation has been laid in an uncertain way. And I think that's the part where with all of this, obviously, there's only so much that you can control, but recognizing that you're potentially dealing with a much more difficult process of parenting than with your biological children. I think you're right. It's important to count the cost. It's important to recognize, like, this is not just going to be business as usual. This is going to be harder. Like, hands down, it will be harder, and that's okay. And obviously, we don't even have our kid yet, so it's like we haven't experienced this, but like the more we learn about it, the more it just starts to make sense, and also the more it just makes you want to have like more grace towards people. And I got to say that the nice thing about the education process is that they talk about, hey, like here are the known challenges that you're going to face, and then here's some strategies that you can start using or start, kind of looking at in order to start dealing with these challenges. And it's actually, I think it's led to us being better parents of our biological children. It's because we've learned new parenting tips and parenting styles along the way. And it just, I don't know, kind of like getting in the head of your kid, you know what I mean? Like understanding their needs, especially emotionally, more effectively, so that you can get ahead of the, not even disciplinary actions, but just, like, why are you melting down right Well, I'm not so sure. But, now that I've learned a little bit more, well, I can more effectively talk to you about where you're at, and we can find a better solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's important, I guess, for people to recognize is like, not to say that every orphanage in the world is a terrible, terrible place,
Right.
but it is to say that there are realistic restrictions on how effectively they can take care of children.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, let's say, 4, nannies or nurses or whatever you want to call them, 4 workers who are there trying to take care of kids, and you have 200 children, there's just only so much that you can give to people, right? And I mean, think about a newborn. How often does a newborn want to be held?
Mm-hmm.
Or how often does a newborn want to be comforted? Would probably be a better way to put it. And the answer is very, very, very often. But if you have 100 more of those, well, they're gonna get what they get. And so I don't know. I think that it's easy to look at the problem and say, oh, it's extremely overwhelming, or, oh, well, this kid's going to be, completely jacked up and they're going to have all these issues. But I think that, whenever you look down the line at the impact that you as an individual can have on another individual, like one person influencing one person, you realize that can be an amazing thing. And the funny thing about this whole adoption process is how many people we have met who have been adopted since we started, even just in the last couple of years. We were having a conversation with the guy in the coffee shop the other day in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then the dude standing in line behind us was like, yeah, I was adopted. We're just like, oh, cool. So,
well, I got one more question for you. Why do you think it costs so darn much?
Okay. Did I not tell you that this was good? Wait until the last question I asked. The cost of it is going to, when you hear some of the things that they reveal and stuff, you'll understand why the cost. You'll understand why the cost is what it is, and why it's so important for certain things. So please tune in next week. Like and subscribe this, share it with people. If you know people that are getting ready to adopt or want to adopt, share this with them. Share this with them. And it will help them a lot. So, all right, have a great day. We'll see you next week. God bless you.